Hey guys, this is Frank, your virtual general aviation aviator, and today I am in the Immortal Beaver, and let's go ahead and start real weather. So the weather may change in a in a minute or two, but anyway, I'm in the Immortal Beaver, and it is cold. I'm in Newfoundland, Canada, and Labrador, Newfoundland and Labrador province, Canada, at Minipi Lodge, and I've got some guys who I need to fly to Goose Bay Airport. Actually, they're going to Otter Goose Creek, and I'll give you the backstory in just a minute. But we are all cold and we want some heat. All right, so let's set these guys and get this guy for rich. Let's get our field turned to the on position, and we'll start on that front tank. Speaking of tanks, let's verify that we've got enough fuel. Let's see. So um, yeah. So I don't need this guy, and and we got a pretty heavy payload. Yeah, we've got plenty of fuel. Okay, so we're good. We are good, and let's get this guy started and get rid of the yoke, and we will get some pressure in the fuel line. Um, Even though we got a fuel boost pump, we don't have a pump that comes on before before the aircraft starts. So I've got to pump this guy up manually. And what I don't want to do is pump it up too high, lest the seals could break and cause a fuel leak, and that would be bad. Okay, so let's prime it. Now there's a little primer button down here that's really hard to see, but you should be able to hear that. And we'll do that about 5 or 6 times, or 6 or 7 times since it's so cold. I'm not really counting, but I think that ought to be enough. Okay, and we'll go ahead and turn our beacon light on and our master on. All right, and we'll go ahead and turn that fuel booster on since it's so cold today. Um, Look, it was snowing a little bit, but it stopped, which is a great thing. Hopefully, our ceilings on those clouds, our bottoms are pretty high. Hopefully. Anyway, let's get started. Get some heat on. All right. So it's so cold. I'm gonna leave the prop feathered and crack the throttle and clear the prop. Make sure there's nobody out there. Prop clear. Okay. So let's try this again. Prop clear. Would help if we turn our mags on, but actually cranking it without mags was a good way to kind of get me some fuel in the reservoirs and the carburetors. All right, prop clear. All right, and My brake should be on. Yep, it is. It's just so slippery out here that the aircraft was able to slide even with the brakes on. So it is extremely slippery out here. All right, so let's unfeather the prop and check my altimeter. 2977 is the reading, and winds were out of the west, out of the east at 11 knots. So based on the winds, this is my best runway. Okay, so let me turn down the engine sound just a touch. So what's going on? Why am I flying? I've got a film crew who's doing documentaries on outdoorsmen and who on guys who are adventurous enough to do outdoors activities in the dead of winter. Now they just wrapped up a guy who's been camping in the back country all winter long, and now we're going to meet a guy at Otter Goose Creek who is canoeing in after spending all winter long in waterways that's where the water's deep and fast enough for him to navigate. So yeah, and he should be getting in a couple hours. So we've got roughly about a 35 minute flight to pick him up. I'm sorry, not to pick him up, but for me to drop this film crew off. Now, I've got three guys with me. The guy in the left seat is a 200-pound guy, and I've got a guy in the back seat just behind me. He weighs about 225, and another guy who apparently has that real fast metabolism. He's at 150, and their gear, their camera gear, which is another 75 pounds or so. So yeah, I am fairly heavy with all the fuel that I have on board, and I do have. I started out with completely full tanks because I knew that once I got here, I wasn't going to be able to get fuel. Now, about the scenery. So I am in, as I mentioned, Minipi, and the real David A. Well, let me go back to the guy who we're meeting. The fictitious guy who's canoeing in, his name is actually David A. And this backstory was inspired by the real David A., who did some work to the scenery and sent me a link to it, which I will include the link in the description below. Speaking of links in the description, you'll also find the link for for this scenery pack with some assets that the real David A has placed on it, in case you want to recreate this flight. So, with that said, let's look at our temp. And yes, our cylinder temps has come up, so I guess we can go ahead and get airborne, which is what I was waiting for. All right, so let's drop in some flaps. Since we got some trees to clear, I am gonna drop my flaps all the way down to takeoff. Okay, And let's take this brake off. Let's go ahead and turn our alternator on. And let's go ahead and turn our pitot heat on and our um, nav lights, our landing lights. We'll go ahead and do pulse lights and instrument lights. I'm sure having the instrument lights on will help you guys out some. And we'll go ahead and turn our radio on. Okay, so I think I got everything turned on now. And so everything looks good. Um, Operating temperatures come up, cylinder temps look good, gas is okay, and oil is in the green. All right, so let's release our brake, and we are off. Now, this runway is extremely slippery, so try not to slide off the runway. And I am heavy. Start bringing them flaps in. And let's take a look at the scenery in this neck of the woods. For a second there, I wasn't sure that was working. So there's the runway that I just took off on. And you should be able to see the lodge right off my nose, along with some of the work that David A., the real David A., not the fictitious one, not the guy on the canoe, did. Of course, he put some assets down here for us to enjoy. So we got people canoeing. And like I said, I am heavy. And I am struggling, as you can see. I'm trying to keep the aircraft from stalling. So let's go back and look at that, make sure that that is something I would have survived, because that looked mighty close. Coming down by those trees. Also give you another chance to take a look at the assets that that David A has put in for us. Okay, so I didn't hit a tree, so yep, see, I would have crashed. Technically, I did not survive that. All right, that's what I want to see. Fortunately, we're in the sim, so I did survive in the sim. All right, so I'm trying to get my speed up. So let me get these flaps out. And I think I may be good now. Okay, so let's head on off to Goose Creek. Now, the only map that I got is, well, I don't have a map, um, but what I do know is that the creek, the elk, I just need to follow the river. I just need to follow the river, and as long as I can keep eyes on that river, it shall lead me. Well, it will lead me directly to Goose Bay Airport. Um, about 30 miles or so. Just my mixture just a touch. Actually, I want to pull that prop down to about that to about there, and I should be able to just cruise now. I'm at 2,000, which is where I want to be. And I want to make sure that I don't lose sight of the river. Now, one of the reasons why I may have had that wane dip into the lake is because I'm so heavy. Um, Again, if you look at my weight, I am extremely heavy here. I've got 4,800 pounds on here. Incidentally, this version of the Beaver is by SMS, So Made Sim. and this is version 1.3, and I'm expecting an upgrade to this version to come out any day now. I can actually go ahead and turn my lights off since I do realize that they're on now. You know, before I turn them out, let me just check my pulse again because I did not see the lights pulsing. Okay, so those are solid. Don't see a pulse there. And I don't see a pulse there either. So I'm not sure it, even though I've got a pulse on the dial, I'm not sure that the pulse is actually modeled yet. But Pete, I think that's the developer's name, um, has said that he's redoubled the efforts that he's putting into this aircraft, and he's released a schedule where he plans to do a series of upgrades. And he says that he has no interest in working on any other aircraft. So hopefully by the end of the day, um, his Beaver will become, that sounds kind of funny, his Beaver will become one of the premier aircrafts for X-Plane again. Of course, it once was. So I am flying over lakes. I'm not sure that I'm in the right location to pick up the river. So I am going to climb. And make sure that I've got my eyes on the river. Yeah, it looks like this is the river here. Yep, I would definitely say this is the river. So right now, what you're looking at is default X-Plane scenery, and it does look a little hazy outside. That's by design. That's because the weather is kind of hazy. So I am, give me a second, guys. The sound is pretty, the engine sounds are pretty loud. So let me turn that down a little bit so I can hear myself talk and I don't have to continue yelling over the sound of the engine. But one thing about the Beaver, that engine is just a steady hum, and even though it's generating a lot of torque when I add power, uh, the pitch of it doesn't change that much. But I want about 30, 33 on the manifolds. And as you can see, I am floating along at about 140 miles per hour. I'm at 2,500 feet, which is a good height. Originally, I said 2,000 feet, but quite frankly, I was not paying attention to the while I was gaining 500 feet. And if I don't pay attention, at this point, I lose 500 feet and not really know it. One thing about the simulator is it's extremely difficult to get a sight picture. Uh, in the in a real aircraft, I would theoretically be able to look at my nose on the horizon and get an idea of whether I am descending or climbing. It is extremely hard to do that in the sim. So as a result, I spent a lot of time looking at my instruments. But flying VFR, you really want to keep your eyes more out of the window, head on a swivel, than glaring at the instruments. In fact, I was watching a video, and the the guy in the left seat was a a guy who had done a lot of simming and actually had his pilot's license, and they were on a VFR flight, and um, the GoPro camera was was pointed back at him and the guy in the right seat. And the guy in the right seat, apparently he was a CFI and an experienced pilot. The guy in the left seat was not so experienced and a heavy simmer. Anyway, it was interesting watching the guy in the left seat, the inexperienced pilot, focus on the instruments when the guy in the right seat was looking out of the window and suggesting more than one time that the guy who was flying the plane spend a little bit more time looking out of the window. Um, as simmers who transition to real world piloting, we that's one of the habits that we often find that CFIs have to break us from. But as a simmer, um, I don't have that seat of my pants feel, so it's really difficult to tell when I'm descending or ascending because I don't have that feeling of my body responding to the air to the aircraft. Does that make sense? Um, so what I do is I rely on my instruments to tell me what I'm doing since I really can't feel, and the only thing that I can the only sense that I have is this little small view out of the windows, and unfortunately, it's really hard to get anything that's really meaningful. So I'm fully expecting to completely run the fuel tank that I'm on dry before I get to my destination. So I can actually turn my manifold pressure down just a little bit. So let's set it at 30. Actually, the best the best cruise for this plane is actually 20 and 30. So let's do 20 and 30. I had it set a little bit high because I was so heavy. Look, Mom, no hands. So I got it trimmed out nicely. Well, picking up a little a little altitude right now, but that's okay. Maybe it will. I guess as I burn off fuel, then I could expect to pick up a little altitude. Because as I burn off that fuel, the aircraft is getting lighter. So, one of the biggest killers of pilots is VFR into IMC, Instrument Meteorology. Well, IMC and IFR are actually two different things, but they mean similar things. I don't know why I can't say um, meteorological. uh, I can't say that word today. But anyway, that's one of the biggest killers, and it looks like I am flying VFR into IMC, um, Instrument Meteorological Conditions, IMC. Anyway, plus with the temperature as low as it is, I'm sure in real life I would have picked up some icing. Um, I don't think icing is modeled in this aircraft yet. Let's look at the outside, and maybe before it's over with, it will get modeled. But in in real life, number one, I would have never made the flight in this particular with these particular conditions, um, because the aircraft does not have a de-icing system, and that too is a killer. Number two, um, it had been snowing earlier, and I know that snow. Um, I know that visibility is a real killer. Number three, if I did take off in these conditions, and what I was seeing in front of me now would be cause to turn around and go back. So you might say, well, I can see the river down there, and I might technically have maybe 10 miles of visibility, but in real life, it just wouldn't be worth it. Um, I do love the saying, and apparently I do because I repeat it enough, that there are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are no old bold pilots. And right now in the sim, I'm simulating being a bold pilot. Okay, so let's see what the let's see what this thing says the weather is. So it's 0 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 18 degrees Celsius. Winds are 325 at 10 out of the northeast, and I'm sorry, northwest. And I got light snow. Ceilings are at 4,700 feet. So technically, I'm okay on the ceilings, but this really is a flight that, ah man, I didn't mean to shut that down like that. I didn't, technically, I just, nobody would fly a Beaver in these conditions because of ice. And now it is possible, and since I'm not from Canada, I don't really know, but I guess it is possible that the the snow is is cold enough for the snow to not really stick on, to blow right off the metal and not pick up icing, because if you're in snow and you don't, um, if everything's frozen, then it would stand to reason that the air wouldn't stick. However, I got all this heat blowing off this big radio engine, which would melt and could create enough moisture for the air to refreeze on the surfaces of the fuselage and or the wings. So, so yeah, I do have another flight where I've flown this same route in the PC Porter, and the scenery looks a lot better. Well, I had on manual weather, and it was configured for covert, um, or basically unlimited visibility. But yes, this is one of those gray, dull, dull, dreary days in the Canadian backcountry. So, since I know I've got at least another 20 minutes of flying, I am going to be quiet and just enjoy the flight. And that way, I can speed the flight up um, on playback, but rest assured, I will sit here in real time and fly it. Be back soon. So I have not flown this route enough to know where I'm at in it, how much how much further I have to go. If I had to guess, I would say I'm probably only at about the halfway mark. As I mentioned earlier, I fully expect that I would burn off a tank of gas, and looks like I've got maybe 10 gallons on my right, on my left tank, on my front tank left, and it shouldn't take long to burn through that. So while I got your attention, I actually do have something that's quite heavy on my heart. I have been I have bought almost all of my payware aircraft from explain.org. And not only have I bought my payware from there, but I had been, let's see, do I have some flaps that I can, yeah, my flaps are fine. Not only have I been a supporter of that site, but I have been an avid um, user in the forums. I started out asking questions, and finally I moved to answering questions and just being a vibrant part of that community. And I loved it. I honestly loved it. Um, However, they've got moderators whose job is to make sure that the users stay compliant. And I get that. And I think that's a great thing. In fact, some of the moderators can actually give some great feedback. But what's heavy on my heart is I was in a conversation under a topic. I think the name of the topic is something like "Are dev- are developers active?" or something. Actually, let me just pop into my email and or the topic is called "Are some developers active?" And I the conversation kind of morphed. Well, the conversation was about how some developers um, have developed payware and then they stop supporting it for whatever reason. Um, you know, whether or not they just put something quick together for a money grab, or they um, got a bigger and bigger project and they just don't have the time to develop it. And even some of them actually, pass on to the great beyond. And so the point is, developers stop supporting their payware for any number of reasons. So I've got um, I've got about 700 posts that I've either asked questions or gave feedback or commented on somebody else's post and explained. So I consider myself a moderate explain.org forum user. Anyway, I know I'm kind of dragging on, but in this forum, I was critical on the explain.org store. And my criticism basically was that I was saying that I think explain.org could do more to protect its customers from developers who develop purely for money grabs. They could do more to let users know if a product is no longer supported. And basically, what I was saying, some sort of review system, whether what some sort of review system attached to the store, um, and even a link from the store directly to the the support forms that developers maintain. And I got this email, this warning from Nicholas, and I think Nicholas is actually the owner of explain.org, that said that I was bashing his site. In fact, um, let me read the comment in his email. Um, well, the email actually penalized me, and the penalty is that anything that I write going forward would be held for moderation, would be held until one of them could look at it and determine whether or not they want to let it go through. And this is what he wrote. Quote, before you bash us on our site, you certainly know that this forum is very open and you can find any information you want here. No, the store does have fake reviews. I think he was trying to write does not have fake reviews. Uh, let's see. I think that's what he was saying. Maybe he was saying no, the store, no store have. Well, anyway, I'm not sure exactly what he meant, but let me keep going. Then he says, I know for a fact that some other stores have fake reviews. I am pretty sure you get help from each store. Um, Let me reread that. I am pretty sure you get help from the store each time you ask, right? If we are bad, why are you here all the time? Just to insult us? Now, and I wrote back that, hey, number one, I did not insult you guys, to my knowledge, and I didn't bash the store. And as far as fake reviews, it was some other user who wrote something about fake reviews. I never, let's see, make sure I ain't lost my river here. Um, yeah, it looked like somehow or another took a side river. I had never said anything whatsoever about a fake review. So, at first I thought, well, maybe this is meant for somebody else. And so I went back to read through my comments. Now, I did make one thing that was more of a snide than a bash. I wrote something to the effect that explain.org may be more interested in getting money because that's how the site is supported through the store, that developers put their wares up, explain sells it, and they get a percentage of the sale. Um, and my comment was something to the point that maybe they want every sale they can get. But that's the And that was more of a snide or a, I don't think it was not true. But anyway, so they basically sanctioned me because I was critical. I was, and and I wasn't nasty critical. I was just saying, they could do more. They could, and I was actually giving suggestions about what they could do to protect people when they buy from explain.org. Because I have bought 3 aircraft where I paid full price without before I learned to to look through the pages of the forums to see if the aircraft is still supported. And I shouldn't have to do that. And these are the kinds of things that I was saying anyway. So it turns out that this guy is so sensitive about his store that he decides to sanction me. So I attempted to go back and read all my posts to make sure that I didn't say anything that would support his claim of me bashing. So it turns out that he had removed all but one of my posts and um, and put me under the sanction. So I've decided that that I am no longer going to support explain.org. I still want to support the developers, the people who develop aircraft and sell them on um, and sell the aircraft. Unfortunately, a lot of them sell exclusively on explain.org. So I'm kind of, at least to my knowledge. So I'm kind of, oh, excuse me, guys. I'm kind of at a catch 22 on how to get aircraft going forward without having to buy the aircraft from explain.org. And as you guys know, most of the developers who do develop support their aircraft on explain.org. Had it not been for those facts, I would have deleted my profile. Um, deleted, just deregistered, just deleted everything from that site. So what I did, I changed my username on that site from virtual GAA. I think that's what I used on that site. A virtual general aviation, um, a virtual GA, and I changed it to been sanctioned, and I deleted my signature, and I'm just not going to support that site. I'm not going to visit. Now, I may be compelled to go there and ask a question, get some support from time to time. What I really am kind of thinking about doing is developing a competitor site. A The problem with that is there are probably sites that compete with explain.org are probably a dime a dozen, and none of them ever rise to the prominence that explain.org has managed to gather over the years. I think it's been a sister site to explain.com since the early days. I did look up the Who Is record to see when it was registered, but I don't recall at this point, but it's been around a long, long time. And the site is actually massive at this point. Um, I'm sure that the site is at the very minimal several terabytes of data is housed on that site. So if I attempted to make a sister site, then it would take probably 5 years or so before I'm even marginally acknowledged to the point that explain.org is, unless um, he drive other people away with that behavior. Um, but anyway, so there probably is not a lot that I can do. I am looking for other sites to to support, to become a part of. I generally try to visit explain.org almost daily, um, whenever I could, and I would enjoy um, being with like-minded people and talking sim aviation. But if the guy who owns the site is so sensitive, so afraid that that if he's going to censor me um, for the slightest little criticism of his store, and not censor other people when they are critical of other products, which is unfair, then I'm like, um, it's better I move on. Um, anyway, I know that some developers do put wares out on Just Flight and xaviation.com. So I do have those sites that I can look for products on. Um, Arabesque is working on a business jet, the Phenom 300, I think, um, and I've kind of had my eyes on getting that aircraft. So I am so hoping that the guys at Airbus do have some other site aside from explain.org that they are selling that plane on, because, like I said, going forward, I almost rather do without an aircraft than to buy it from explain.org. And I know me pulling my business, it probably won't make a hill of difference in terms of sales or the survivability of the site, but me pulling my business is more for me and my, um, for the lack of a better, yeah, for the lack of a better word, pride and well-being than for explain.org. Incidentally, I should mention that explain.org has no affiliation whatsoever with explain.com, the people who actually build the the explain seminar, has no relationship, no professional relationship at all with Laminar Research, Austin Myers, or any of those guys. He was just able to get the URL explain.org and build it before, well, as explain became popular. Um, so, so and I think that's a commendable thing. I think that what Nicholas has done with the site is great. Um, I just don't appreciate him being, if we are that bad, why are you here all the time? Come on, that's high school stuff. And I consider, if you look at my profile and my username now is Ben Sanction, BEEN, and the word sanction, then you will find that out of 700 posts, I have not bashed anybody. Well, there is one guy who was complaining about how bad X-Plane, the simulator, was, and how he was gonna leave the site and not not support it anymore. And I did reply with "See ya," and I was being totally facetious. And so, other than that, now that's as close as I've ever come to bashing anyone on that site. Well, no, that's not true. I have bashed Coronado because I have bought some of their aircraft, and the aircraft looked beautiful, but some stuff that should work in the aircraft did not work. Um, in fact, one of my favorite aircraft, the PC-12 by Coronado, the ADF radio is only partially modeled. So if I was planning a flight and needed to fly to an ADF um, radio beacon, I couldn't do it in the PC-12 by Coronado, and I consider ADF as basic of navigation as it gets. I mean, it was around before VORs. Um, and if you're going to have a ADF radio stack in an aircraft, I can't see why you would not have it modeled. But, oh man, look at my altitude. I'm just steadily descending here. So let me fix that. So anyway, so I did bash them, and I let's see, um, and I may have bashed the developers who whose aircraft I have purchased and couldn't get support for. I think one of them is Big Tower Big Tower Productions. Actually, I did not bash them. Um, I did not bash Big Tower Production. The other guy is Rob Wilson Designs, R RWD, and he has completely abandoned the store. And I don't recall bashing him. I know I chased him down at another forum. No, that was Big Tower Production. He had posted something on another forum, and I um, replied to his post. Hey, we need you at Big Tower Production. Anyway, looks like I am getting um, closer. Now, somewhere along the line, I should run into better looking scenery. I installed a ortho towel up around the airport, Goose Bay Airport, and so the scenery should be a little bit more interesting. Um, I don't think I've gotten that far yet. And let's see. Actually, I thought the trip was about 33 miles. Maybe it was further because I've been flying. I've been wheels up probably close to an hour now. You know, and I'm just kind of rambling, making conversation with you guys, even though it's one way. One of the reasons why I don't fly the 747s, well, I don't fly big, heavy airline jets, is because I can't see me doing a long haul flight or even a short haul flight, flying these um, halfway across the country, say from Washington to Atlanta, and sitting there the whole time when basically the only part of the flight that really require my input is takeoffs and landings, and I don't see the fun in you know I, I was part of a virtual airline, and even some of you guys may do this, and I'm not knocking it because to each his own. But for me, I can't see, and I don't get starting a flight at say 10 p.m. and waking up at say 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. just to land it. Um, at that That's just not how I fly, which is why, for the most part, I fly low and slow. Right now, the fastest thing that I like flying is my PC-12, my TBM, and my Eclipse. And I think they only fly roughly about 300 knots, um, so per hour. The so even in those, I'm not going to go cross country. Now, I have been experimenting with the Citation 10 or the Citation X, which is technically still in alpha phase. It's a community-driven aircraft. It's available in xplane.org. There we go again. Downloads. And right now, very little on that aircraft work. There is a guy who's developing that, who's continuing the development of that aircraft. Um, but based on what I've seen him do, I'm not so sure that he's really up to the task. Um, I did try and put him in touch with a real world um, Citation X pilot, who has a YouTube channel, by the way. Just Google Citation 10 or Citation X Jet Boy, and you'll bring up his channel. Um, so so I did buy R. See, I mentioned RWD. I did buy his Citation Mustang, but it the the autopilot is so buggy that I parked it in my virtual hangar um, months ago, probably almost a year now, and have not pulled it out. It's just got too many bugs in it. But the Phenom may be my segue into more high and fast flying. Um, this jet by Aerofly, not Aerofly, but Aerobask. I probably should download fly more jets and become more familiar with instrument flying. But sometimes instrument flying feel more like studying. um, I can fly an RNAV and I can fly an ILS. Um, I still, I to be honest with you, I'm almost ashamed to admit this, but I still can't program the X-Plane FMC. Um, but as long as I got the G1000 and um, the the Garmin 750, then I really don't have an interest in learning how to program the the G1000 FMC. I mean the what's it called? The X-Plane FMC, which is modeled on the real world FMC's flight management systems. Now, there is a developer who's been working on the Apex Promise, the Honeywell Apex Promise avionics suite, and just I love that suite. And well, I love it because that's what's really in the not the citation, the Pilatus X, or the Pilatus NG and the Pilatus NGX. But until he come out with that aircraft, then I'm still sticking with the existing Honeywell package that's in the Pilatus, rather than the next gen stuff. So I guess you guys can tell that. Um, well, I was going to say, I guess you can tell that I have strong opinions, but no, I don't think my opinions are um, that strong. And if I disagree, then I can be persuaded, because a lot of times when I take a position, I try to keep my mind open to other people's positions. One of my favorite sayings, maybe something that I say all the time, and I don't know where I coined this from, maybe a Frank White original, is that if everybody was like me, this would be a dull world. Just like if everybody was like you, it would be a dull world. So, with all our differences, that's what made life exciting. So, as I look at this gas on this engine, on this front engine come down, I would say in real life, I would go ahead and switch tanks, but I'm expecting the um, I'm expecting the engine to die in a second, and when it does, I'll switch to the rear tank. Um, the order in which you want to burn gas in the Beaver is generally front, rear, center. However, if you're in the float plane, then the order is a little different. I think it's center. I'm not sorry, not center, but rear, front, and center. So just a little tidbits of information. I'm still trying to keep my altitude up around 2,500. I have not checked the altimeter in quite some time. Let's see. And there it go. Just what I was expecting. And we are back in business. All right, so now we are burning gas from our rear tank. And I'm just curious to see how this look in the weight and balance. Yeah. So fuel tank number one empty. So you guys have heard the story about why I no longer can support explain.org in good conscience, yet they pretty much have a monopoly on add-ons for Explain. Also, there is a another website that's brand new. It's called Flight Sim Association, and they did this thing that they where they put out. We have a big announcement, and nobody knew what that announcement was, but it was to introduce that website, which people found as a disappointment. When you if you're going to announce something that I can really use. as opposed to something that, a website. It's hard to get excited about websites these days. But anyway, um, I looked at Flight Sim Association, and I think the website is interesting. I certainly want to support it. The the biggest issue, and I did leave this feedback, is Flight Sim Association is trying not to compete with other flight sim websites. They want to be, how shall I say, kind of a clearinghouse, for the lack of a better term, for flight sim information. So, if I'm looking for something or dealing with something or trying to figure out where I can find something, then the idea is maybe I can find out where to go from visiting their site. At least that's one of the things that they're doing. The other thing that they plan to do is webinars, um, which is basically webinars are are done by Twitch. Oftentimes, developers will do a Twitch section session, which is effectively a webinar. Um, so, from that perspective, it's not new. Um, of course, what is interesting that Flight Sim Association is doing is they are trying to recruit and really big names in the flight sim industry to do their webinars. Um, for example, on June 1, a guy from X-Plane will be doing a webinar, and I understand that the webinar should discuss the history, what's going on now, and what the future holds for X-Plane. So that ought to be interesting. And I definitely would love to sit in on that webinar. The only problem I got with Flight Sim Association is it's a membership. Well, they launched it as a membership driven website. And the fee, it looks like an airport there. It is an airport. The fee is $30. I wonder what airport that is. I did not. I don't recall seeing it before. In fact, I may be way off course. It's possible I took a wrong. It's entirely possible I took a wrong route and somewhere where I'm not supposed to be, because I don't recall any other airports in the route. And I feel like I should have gotten to my destination by now. So let's do this. Anyway, to make a long story short, about the airport, about the Flight Sim Association is they're charging a membership fee of $30 a year, and for right now, I don't know if it's worth the fee that they're charging. Could very well be, but I can't see the value uh, in it at the moment. That could change. Okay, so let's pull up the sectional and explain. Maybe that will let me know where I'm at. And actually, that's an airport just before the airport that I want to land at. I did not realize it was there. So let me turn my power back up. I don't know what airport that is, but just looking at the sectional here, I am not that far. I don't think I'm that far from Goose Creek. I mean, let's see. Maybe I flew by it. Now, Goose Creek. Let's see, where the devil am I? I tell you what, guys, let me land and I'll pull out the sectional and figure out where I'm at. So I'm gonna overfly this airport, see if I see a a windsock. There's the windsock there. So yeah, I can, let's see, and then what what do we have here for runway number 13? So yeah, we'll come in and land on 13. Well, I know from experience that I really need to have an approach to get a good landing in this tail dragger. So and if I'd have tried to land on such a short base, short left base like that, then I would probably wind up having a bad day. So this is an extended downwind, and I'm gonna turn base and final. Okay, so let me drop some flaps in, pull my power back, lights, gas, mixture, prop. Whoa. And go ahead and make this a 360. I might be a little high anyway. Let's see, I am 50. I was wondering what I was doing on frames because it's getting some stuttering. All right, so I should see that airport now. Yep, there it is. that speed up. I don't want to get too slow. So now this is one of the things that I was talking about earlier in this flight, how if you don't look at your gauges, you don't have that feeling, and I could easily get too slow. Let's get some flaps in, and I may need to do a go around because I feel like I'm way too high. I don't know the elevation, so this will be a go around, but I need to see, get an idea of how what the elevation of the field is. So I could probably land. Let's go ahead and land. I think I can make this. All right. So I see the assets at the end of the runway anyway, so that kind of worked out. Peek up over that dash. And okay. In real life, that's often how people with these tail draggers with these big radio engines in front have to peek out by going sideways and looking out over the side of the aircraft. All right, so I can clean up here. Flaps up, lights off, strobe lights off, and my oh man, the guys in the back seat, they are getting they're pretty pissed that that I got them out in Newfoundland, and I don't even know what airport I'm at. Feather that prop. Okay, let's bring up this section over here. So we can figure out where the devil we are. Where are we? Looks like I'm at that CZUM. and I am so far from my destination I don't even see it. Let's pull it up in Sky Vector. Just give me a second to get it up. Okay, so let's see the Sky Vector. Got distracted there for a second. All right, so I'm gonna pull that over and then make it visible. Okay, so this is where I want it to be at, and I think it was CZUM. CZUM. Wow. And this is where I'm at. And this is the route. Let's see. I think my start was somewhere up in here, and I was supposed to fly this river here and then swing back to the right and land here. Apparently what I did, I wish there was a marker I could turn on here, but there isn't. Let's see. Apparently what I did was I took this route here, went on up through here. I think, let's see. Yeah. I went on up through here. And then when I got here, when I got to this intersection, I apparently veered off to the west and followed this river all the way here, which is why it took so much longer than I thought it would, because I am way somewhere where I should not be. So I am tired right now, but what I am, what I do a part two to this flight, and fortunately, this guy do have a ADF radio, so I do know that if I fly roughly a 100, if I fly roughly 100 on the compass rose on the radio, then I ought to fly a Baron 2, this ADF. So I should be able to find it on the ADF. And let's see, I think this guy does have, yeah, I can use an ADF. So with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and shut down. And I hope I kept you guys, for any of you guys who stayed with me this whole flight. I hope I kept you company. I enjoyed having you aboard. And and on the next flight, no matter what the weather is, I'm gonna make it a beautiful day. All right. And I'll probably fly the Thunder version on the next flight, which will have a GPS in it anyway. But I will fly using the ADF. Okay, so and incidentally, this aircraft, the the compass does not match up here sometimes, and I don't think, yeah, see, there's no way to really get it to match up when it don't. This is just a heading bug here, and this guy here is not modeled, so that's something that really needs to be fixed. Um, and I should have paid more attention to the compass. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this flight, even though my the film crew is pissed with me and they want to do a bathroom run, which we'll all do, and um, fictitiously we'll get back in the air and try to get there to meet David A. canoeing in, but in reality, I'll do this flight some other day. So until next time, guys, ciao.